Hello and welcome everyone to the first installment of a new webinar series about 5 customers that sped up their decision making. In this series, we'll explore how faster decision making improves your digital experience across the 5 pillars of the customer journey. I'm your host, Dylan Smith, and in each of these brief conversations, we'll be joined by a member of our team who will be sharing stories that demonstrate what we mean to quantify the why and quickly take action. In this session, we're focusing on those first few interactions your potential customers have with your brand. Now, first impressions are everything. An opportunity to attract a new customer begins the moment they land on your digital doorstep. But how do we anticipate someone's needs so quickly after they arrive? Though we're heading towards an era of increasing personalization, we're not there yet. Not quite. How can we make smarter decisions about what to show on our website or mobile app in order to maximize engagement from prospective customers while minimizing bounce rates? With thousands of options to display on that limited homepage real estate, it's easy to delay decision making or just go with the status quo. But at Quantimetric, we found that companies who leverage data to make smarter decisions about what to display and aren't afraid to mix it up a little bit every now and then end up seeing greater success. This is a critical part of the first pillar of the customer journey, what we call discovery. This phase includes the customer's initial research, how they navigate to your site, and their overall first impressions of your brand. And at many companies, teams will often compete to get their products and offers shown to prospective customers up front, setting up this internal conflict over who wins out. This conflict often delays decision making over one of the areas that can have the most impact in growing an audience, funnel, and potential customers. Next, we'd like to share a story that demonstrates this challenge in action. So I'd like to introduce Liz Lantz. Liz, would you join me up here? Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Liz is a leader on our customer success team, and she has a great story about a company who, during the peak holiday season, faced down uncertainty in their own discovery pillar. Liz, would you share that with us?
Yeah, thanks so much for that introduction. So the story I'm going to share today is about a major fashion retailer who was going into holiday season. And they wanted to know how users were interacting with the content on their homepage before Cyber Week. So in years prior, they had no visibility into how users were engaging with any of the content. And they described making business decisions around content like taking total shots in the dark. So realistically, they weren't really able to A/B test during this time frame. It's really risky during peak volume, and it can take weeks or even months to get results from that. And if they ever needed to query the database, it was a really cumbersome process and totally inaccessible to most of their team. So without any visibility, the team was forced to make a lot of assumptions and resort to just listening to the loudest voice in the room. And that's really not what they wanted to do. They wanted to make data-driven decisions that would have a positive impact for both their business and their customers. So after deploying Quantimetric, they used Quantimetric's visual heat mapping tool interactions, and almost immediately, the heat map revealed something startling on their homepage. A product recommendation feature on the page was converting shoppers at a super high rate. That's great. So what's the problem? It was buried so far down on the page that only 17% of visitors ever scrolled far enough to see it. So the team just made a really quick, simple change. They moved that high performing section from the bottom of the page to the top of the page, and the results were immediate. The number of shoppers that saw the feature tripled. It became the highest performing piece of content on the homepage during holiday. And most importantly, the page's overall conversion rate jumped and led to an increase of tens of thousands of dollars of revenue each day. So that's just a single simple change that led to this massive win. And without QM, they would have not known that feature was performing that high. And I would venture to guess that they would have done that execution year over year without ever realizing that opportunity was sitting on the table.
Thanks for sharing that story, Liz. I
Yeah.
think that does a really good job of demonstrating the immense value that you can get moving from guesswork to what we call quantified decision making. Not only now, but it changes your behavior so that you get those positive benefits far into the future. And I think a lot of people in their shoes, particularly given the stress of the holiday season and you're under a tight timeline, they might make that decision differently, right? Relying on things that you called out like internal politics or relying on the loudest voice in the room in order to make the call. But we see here that you don't need to do that. And oftentimes you don't need to do too much to make a decision. You have enough data to move quickly without needing to do things like long, complex A/B tests, right, in order to get that done. There's another example of this in our 5 Pillars ebook for those of you that are watching if you haven't checked that out yet. And it's all about understanding different performance rates across 2 really similar landing pages and what was driving that delta. We'll be sure to link that here so you can read it for yourself. And it also does a really good job of showing how those little things can have a really big impact on digital with the scale. If you'd like to learn more about how you can make faster decisions and take more decisive action to improve your discovery experience, please visit quantummetric.com and check out the product tours section of our website. In particular, look for the demos on interactions Heatmaps and our web plugin Visible so you can see the kind of analysis Liz talked about in her story. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Liz, for sharing that great story with us. And please tune in to the other 4 parts of this series to hear other stories about how enterprises defeat indecision throughout the customer journey. We'll see you next time.